Imagine standing in the streets of an ancient Mesopotamian city more than 4,000 years ago. The markets are closing. The last rays of sunlight reflect off towering mud brick temples. A man walks toward a woman. They stop, look into each other's eyes, and they kiss. Not because it's the end of a wedding. Not because anyone says, "You may kiss the bride." Not because it's Valentine's Day. In fact, none of those traditions exist. That single kiss belonged to a world completely different from our own. Today, kissing feels almost universal. It appears in movies, songs, fairy tales, advertisements. For many people, a kiss is the ultimate symbol of romance. It seems so natural that we rarely stop to ask a simple question. Why do humans kiss at all? The answer is far stranger than most people realize. Unlike smiling or crying, kissing is not something every human culture has practiced. Throughout history, entire societies have lived without romantic kissing, while others developed elaborate rules for when, where, and even how lips should touch. Even more surprising, scientists still cannot agree on exactly why humans began kissing in the first place. Was it an instinct inherited from our distant ancestors? A cultural invention that spread across civilizations? A way to choose healthy partners? Or something else entirely? The deeper historians and anthropologists investigate, the more mysterious the story becomes. Because the history of kissing is not simply a love story. It is a story about biology, power, religion, disease, politics, family, and the countless ways human beings have expressed trust over thousands of years. The kiss you know today is the product of an extraordinary journey stretching across ancient empires, medieval kingdoms, scientific laboratories, and modern cinema. And perhaps the biggest surprise of all, the first kiss in history may have had almost nothing to do with romance. To understand why billions of people kiss today, we first have to travel back to a world where a kiss could mean something entirely different. It may seem impossible to imagine a world without kissing, yet for countless generations, many people lived exactly that way. For centuries, historians assumed kissing was a universal human instinct. It appeared so naturally in literature, art, and everyday life that few questioned whether every culture shared the same tradition. Then, anthropologists began comparing societies from around the world. What they discovered challenged one of our oldest assumptions. Not everyone kisses. Studies of traditional cultures have found that romantic kissing is far from universal. While many societies embrace it, others have historically shown little interest in pressing their lips together as a sign of affection. Instead, love and intimacy were expressed in completely different ways. Some couples gently rubbed noses. Others touched foreheads. Some breathed in each other's scent at close range. In certain communities, simply sitting together or holding hands carried more emotional meaning than a kiss ever could. To those cultures, kissing was not missing, it was unnecessary. That raises an extraordinary question. If kissing were purely instinctive, like smiling when happy or crying when hurt, wouldn't every society do it? The answer is not as simple as yes or no. Biologists point out that humans naturally explore the world through touch, smell, and taste. Our lips contain thousands of sensitive nerve endings, making them one of the most responsive parts of the body. From that perspective, kissing may build upon biological instincts that all humans share. Anthropologists, however, argue that biology alone cannot explain the remarkable diversity of human behavior. Culture shapes the meaning of even our most basic actions. A gesture considered romantic in one civilization may seem confusing or even inappropriate in another. Perhaps kissing is both a biological possibility and a cultural invention. That idea explains why the practice could emerge independently, disappear, or spread from one society to another over thousands of years. Which brings us to another mystery. If kissing was not truly universal, where is the earliest evidence that people actually did it? The answer is hidden, not in paintings or statues, but in tiny wedge-shaped marks pressed into wet clay over 4,000 years ago. Long before Hollywood made the kiss a symbol of love, ancient scribes were already writing about it. If kissing did not exist everywhere, where does the story actually begin? For generations, historians searched for the first kiss in paintings, statues, and ancient myths. But the oldest evidence was hiding somewhere far less glamorous, inside broken pieces of clay. More than 4,000 years ago, in the fertile lands between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the people of Mesopotamia developed one of humanity's first writing systems. Using a reed stylus, scribes pressed tiny wedge-shaped marks into soft clay tablets. Thousands of those tablets still survive today. Most record taxes, trade, or royal decrees, but some reveal something far more personal: love, desire, and kisses. Ancient Sumerian and Babylonian texts describe people kissing in romantic relationships, within marriage, and in expressions of affection. These writings show that kissing was already familiar enough that it required no explanation. It was simply part of everyday life. For a long time, many scholars believed the earliest written evidence came from ancient India, where Sanskrit texts, composed thousands of years ago, described lovers embracing and kissing in remarkable detail. Works such as the Kama Sutra, written centuries later, even distinguished between different kinds of kisses and discussed when they should be exchanged. Yet recent archaeological research has pushed the written history of kissing even further back. Mesopotamian cuneiform texts suggest that people were writing about kisses at roughly the same time, or perhaps even earlier, than the earliest Indian references. The debate continues. Historians still discuss exactly where the first written description appeared. But one conclusion has become increasingly clear. There was probably no single inventor of kissing. Instead, similar customs may have emerged independently in different societies, as civilizations became larger and more socially complex. As people formed permanent communities, marriage systems, royal courts, and religious rituals, gestures of affection and respect also became more formalized. A kiss could seal a relationship, express loyalty, show intimacy, or acknowledge social rank. Its meaning depended entirely on the moment. This is what makes the ancient evidence so fascinating. The earliest written kisses were never portrayed as extraordinary. The scribes did not stop to explain what a kiss was. They assumed every reader already knew. That simple detail tells us something profound. By the time humans began recording history, kissing was already an old tradition. Its true origin had disappeared into a past so distant that even the earliest civilizations could no longer remember where it had begun. And as kingdoms expanded beyond Mesopotamia, the meaning of a kiss expanded with them. It would soon become more than a gesture between lovers. In the greatest empire of the ancient world, a kiss could reveal exactly who you were. By the time the Roman Empire dominated the Mediterranean, a kiss was no longer just a private gesture. It had become part of public life. Romans kissed friends, family members, political allies, even emperors. But not every kiss meant the same thing. Roman society developed distinct customs for different kinds of kisses. A respectful greeting, a kiss between close relatives, and a kiss between lovers all carried different social meanings. A single gesture could communicate affection, loyalty, respect, or romantic desire without a word being spoken. In a society obsessed with status, everyone understood the difference. A kiss could even confirm legal and social relationships. Husbands sometimes kissed their wives in public, and formal greetings between members of the elite reinforced bonds of trust and hierarchy. In the imperial court, who was permitted to kiss the emperor or even approach him closely could reflect extraordinary privilege. The kiss had become a language, one spoken with the lips instead of the voice. But there was another side to this intimacy, one that ancient people only partly understood. Every kiss also carried something invisible: human breath, saliva, disease. Long before anyone knew about bacteria or viruses, people occasionally noticed that illnesses seemed to spread through close contact. They could not explain why, but they understood that proximity sometimes brought danger. As cities grew larger and trade connected continents, infectious diseases spread more easily than ever before. Then came the great epidemics: the Antonine Plague, the Plague of Cyprian. Centuries later, the Black Death. During outbreaks, fear transformed ordinary behavior. Communities searched desperately for ways to protect themselves, and close physical contact naturally became more suspicious. Medical knowledge remained limited, so responses varied widely from place to place. Some people avoided unnecessary contact. Others continued traditional greetings because custom was stronger than fear. The tension between affection and safety had begun. Religion added another layer of complexity. In early Christianity, believers exchanged what became known as the Holy Kiss, or Kiss of Peace, a ritual symbolizing unity within the community. It appeared in religious ceremonies as a visible expression of fellowship rather than romance. Over time, however, church leaders in different regions became increasingly concerned about maintaining order during worship and reducing opportunities for inappropriate behavior. In many places, the practice evolved or became more restricted. Sometimes the symbolic kiss was replaced by other gestures or ceremonial objects passed through the congregation. The meaning of the kiss continued to change, not because the gesture itself had changed, but because society had. By the Middle Ages, a kiss could seal a marriage, confirm an oath of loyalty, honor a sacred object, or greet a family member. Knights kissed relics before battle. Subjects kissed a ruler's hand in recognition of authority. Pilgrims kissed religious icons as acts of devotion. The same movement of the lips carried dozens of different meanings. Love was only one of them. Perhaps that is the greatest irony. Today, many people think of kissing as the universal symbol of romance. For much of history, it was just as likely to symbolize obedience, faith, politics, or trust between strangers. And yet, despite wars, plagues, and changing religions, kissing never disappeared. Instead, it kept evolving, because beneath every custom lay a deeper question that ancient civilizations could never fully answer. Why did this simple gesture feel so powerful in the first place? The answer, it turns out, may be hidden inside the human brain itself. After thousands of years, one question still refuses to disappear. Why do humans kiss? It seems like such a simple act, yet scientists have spent decades trying to explain why two people would voluntarily press one of the most sensitive parts of their bodies together. Surprisingly, there is no single answer. Instead, researchers have proposed several competing theories. The first begins with one of humanity's oldest relationships, a mother and her child. Long before baby food existed, mothers in many ancient societies softened food by chewing it before passing it to their infants. Anthropologists believe this close mouth-to-mouth contact may have helped establish deep emotional bonds between parent and child. Some researchers have suggested that romantic kissing may have evolved from these early nurturing behaviors. It is an intriguing idea, but the evidence remains incomplete. Another theory focuses on something humans rarely notice consciously: smell. Although we often think of kissing as something involving the lips, our noses are working just as hard. Standing only inches apart allows each person to detect subtle chemical signals carried in another person's scent. Some evolutionary biologists believe this may help people unconsciously gather information about a potential partner's health or genetic compatibility. The science is still being explored, and researchers continue to debate exactly how important these chemical cues are in human relationships. Then there is the brain itself. A kiss activates an extraordinary network of nerves concentrated in the lips and face. The brain responds by releasing chemicals associated with pleasure, reward, emotional bonding, and attachment, including dopamine and oxytocin. These chemicals do not magically create love, but they can strengthen feelings of closeness between people who already share trust and affection. In other words, the kiss may not create a relationship. It may reinforce one. There is another fascinating clue. Humans are not completely alone in this behavior. Chimpanzees and bonobos sometimes touch mouths after conflicts, during grooming, or while strengthening social bonds. Their behavior is not identical to human kissing, but it suggests that close facial contact may have deeper evolutionary roots than once believed. Even so, no scientist can point to a single moment when kissing first appeared. Perhaps it evolved gradually. Perhaps different cultures invented similar behaviors independently. Perhaps biology provided the possibility, while culture gave it meaning. That uncertainty is what makes the history of kissing so remarkable. After thousands of years of poetry, philosophy, religion, and modern neuroscience, one of humanity's most familiar gestures remains one of its greatest mysteries. We understand what happens inside the brain during a kiss. We understand some of the chemicals involved. But we still cannot say with certainty why human civilizations embraced this behavior while others never did. Sometimes, history leaves us with questions instead of answers. And perhaps that is fitting, because a kiss has never been just biology. It is also memory, culture, trust, and emotion. The science can explain what happens inside the human body, but only history can explain why that same simple gesture has meant so many different things to so many different people across thousands of years. For thousands of years, a kiss could mean almost anything: respect, friendship, loyalty, religion, politics. Romance was only one possibility among many. Then, in little more than a century, that changed, not because of kings, not because of priests, but because of cameras. At the beginning of the 20th century, motion pictures introduced something entirely new. For the first time, millions of strangers could watch the same love story unfold exactly the same way. Before cinema, ideas about romance varied enormously from one culture to another. Courtship was shaped by local customs, religion, and family traditions. Many marriages were arranged, and public displays of affection were often limited or discouraged. Hollywood offered a different vision. On the screen, the kiss became the emotional climax. Arguments ended with a kiss. Wars ended with a kiss. Long separations ended with a kiss. The final scene often did not feel complete until two characters leaned toward one another as the music swelled. Audiences watched. Then they copied what they saw. The influence extended far beyond movie theaters. Magazines filled their covers with glamorous couples. Advertisements used kissing to sell everything from perfume to automobiles. Romantic novels described unforgettable first kisses. Later, television carried those same images into living rooms around the world. Gradually, one message became almost universal. If two people are truly in love, they kiss. This was not an ancient tradition. It was a modern cultural narrative repeated thousands of times through mass media. Even famous moments in history reinforced the idea. One of the most recognizable photographs of the 20th century shows a sailor kissing a nurse in New York's Times Square at the end of World War II. Whether viewed as a symbol of celebration or reconsidered through modern perspectives on consent, the image became deeply embedded in popular culture. The photograph was no longer simply documenting a kiss. It helped define what a kiss represented. By the late 20th century, globalization accelerated the process. American films reached audiences across continents. Disney fairy tales ended with true love's kiss. Romantic comedies built entire plots around a single, unforgettable moment. Even people whose grandparents had grown up with very different customs increasingly encountered the same cinematic language of romance. Of course, reality has always been more complicated than fiction. Not every culture expresses love through kissing. Not every relationship begins with one. And not every kiss carries the same meaning. History reminds us that this simple gesture has never belonged to a single tradition. Yet Hollywood accomplished something remarkable. It transformed one possible meaning of a kiss into the meaning that much of the modern world now instinctively recognizes. After 4,000 years of changing customs, the kiss became less a symbol of power or ceremony, and more a symbol of love. But beneath the romance, one ancient truth never disappeared. A kiss still required two people to do something profoundly human. To move closer than almost any other moment in daily life. To trust another person enough to share the same breath. For thousands of years, wars came and went. Empires rose and collapsed. Religions changed. Yet kissing survived them all. Then, in 2020, the world suddenly asked a question that had rarely been considered before. Should we stop kissing? As the COVID-19 pandemic spread across the globe, one of humanity's oldest gestures became something many people temporarily feared. Health authorities encouraged physical distancing, families avoided close contact, and even greetings that had lasted for generations were replaced by waves, elbow bumps, or video calls. For a brief moment, a kiss became something people weighed against the risk of infection. At the same time, another transformation was already underway. More relationships now begin online than ever before. Dating apps allow people to meet without ever sharing the same room. Couples can exchange thousands of messages, photographs, and video calls before their first kiss ever happens. Technology has changed the beginning of romance. But it has not replaced the moment when two people finally meet face to face. That is because kissing has always been more than physical contact. It is communication without words, a gesture that combines trust, vulnerability, and emotion into a single moment. Scientists continue to study its biology. Anthropologists continue to debate its origins, and every generation gives it new meanings. The future may bring virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and forms of communication we can scarcely imagine today. Yet one question remains. Will human beings ever completely abandon a gesture that has survived at least 4,000 years of recorded history? Perhaps. But history suggests otherwise, because every age has reinvented the kiss instead of erasing it. Its meaning changes, its customs evolve, but the human desire to express closeness has proven remarkably difficult to replace. And that may be the oldest lesson this extraordinary story has to offer. Thousands of years ago, somewhere in ancient Mesopotamia, two people met. They leaned toward one another, and they kissed. No one watching could have imagined that this simple gesture would survive the rise and fall of empires, cross continents, outlive kings and religions, and eventually appear on movie screens watched by billions of people. Yet here we are. The meaning of a kiss has never stayed the same. It has been a greeting, a promise, a religious ritual, a political ceremony, a farewell, a celebration, a declaration of love. Sometimes it brought comfort. Sometimes it reinforced power. Sometimes, during times of plague, it even carried fear. But beneath every changing custom, one truth remained remarkably constant. A kiss always requires trust. For one brief moment, two people willingly step inside each other's personal space. They lower their guard, share the same breath, and accept a level of vulnerability that humans rarely offer strangers. Perhaps that is why kissing has endured for so long. Not because every culture practiced it, not because science has fully explained it, and certainly not because Hollywood invented romance. It survived because human beings have always searched for ways to express something words often cannot. Connection, affection, loyalty, belonging. The first people who pressed their lips together could never have known that their gesture would still exist thousands of years later. Nor could they have imagined that scientists, historians, and anthropologists would still debate how it all began. Maybe that mystery is part of its beauty. Some of history's greatest inventions have a clear inventor. The kiss does not. It belongs to no single civilization, no single religion, no single moment in time. Only to generations of ordinary people who, across thousands of years, found countless ways to say the same timeless thing. I trust you.